Hello, my dear ones, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with My Higher Self. How are you? I am so excited to see so many of you here today. We are growing. That's great news. That's great news. There's more of you, and the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. Today, we have a fascinating topic. Our number one most downloaded episode on Conversations with My Higher Self is the one I did on Akashic Records. That one was, I believe, in late 2021. So if you want to go back and re-listen to that one, if you haven't, you should, because that is a very basic foundational episode. And it seems like there's so much interest from you guys, from this collective group around the Akashic Records and accessing your Akashic Records, that I figured I'd do Akashic Records 2.0 episode, or more advanced, if you will. There's so much to talk about around the Akashic Records. It is such a rich topic that there's just no way we could have covered it in one episode. So today is going to be super fascinating. But before we dive in, a couple of housekeeping items. First things first, if you have been meditating with me on our Sacred Universe podcast, you are rocking. If you haven't, check it out. It's our new podcast. It's amazing. We do these guided journeys and meditations. They come from my heart straight into yours. They are life-changing, and you should definitely be on it. Secondly, if you haven't considered reading my book, 72 Keys to Manifestation, An Ancient Path of a Modern Day Alchemist, you should. It is available on Amazon. It is a book that will change your life. It is a book that's going to be your guiding path, your doorway into your own personal, cell of abundance within the matrix. It is also a really, really good book on overall spirituality. And it has so many ancient keys within that would help you just above and beyond, not just, get wealthy and, manifest your dreams. That's just like the very basic layer of that book. But there's so much around overall spirituality and your purpose and your mission and why you came and how to use the tools that, and the energetic tools that you all have around that book, that it is, honestly, it's a very layered book, and it's the one that you could reread over and over again and still find new things in there. So if you haven't checked it out, you should. Lastly, if you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, this is Mariya, is the name of it. You're awesome. If you've been commenting, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And that's it. That's it for in terms of housekeeping items. We can dive into the very rich topic of today. So in this particular episode on the Akashic Records, I wanted us to focus on how to read your own personal Akashic Record field beyond past lives. So we're going to be diving deep into a little bit of the structure of your personal Akashic Record field and some of the shortcuts that are available to you. I would be talking to you about some of the sections that I recommend you go check out. Later in the episode, we're going to talk about accessing the Akashic Records of other people. Not necessarily for readings, but for general information. And I will be explaining first, the when it is okay to do that and for what purpose, and how it can be useful to you. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about accessing the Akashic Records of groups of people. It can be anything from organizations to countries to a planetary consciousness, if you will. Not dissimilar. The process that I would be explaining to you is not dissimilar to what I am using when we're doing these episodes together, because if you've been with me for some time, you know that towards the end of the episode, I like to ask the questions from the collective consciousness of everybody who's listening to this episode in particular, but, overall planet Earth. And so I'll teach you how you could access collective consciousness as well, because it is actually fairly easy, believe it or not. Just nobody teaches that for some reason. So figured I'd change that, because why not? Alrighty, you guys, why don't we dive into the Akashic Records? Again, this is the second episode, right? So I'm not going to dive too much into the basics. If you are curious about how the Akashic Records came about, what it is, what is the overall general structure of it, how to start establishing a relationship with Akashic Records, you should go and listen to my previous episode don't remember the actual like the date that we did it, but sometime in 2021, not too far ago. So okay, now moving on to everything else that I haven't mentioned about the Akashic Records, right? Now, I will still, regardless, give you a really, really quick kind of like synopsis of the Akashic Records, just so we're starting from the common ground. The Akashic Records is an overall informational field that was at one point created by Source Consciousness to help record everything that happens within the matrix, within this virtual reality that we all live in, as well as the realm of spirit. So the Akashic Records is a very rich database, the richest database in existence. And it is always becoming richer. It's an ever expanding database. It has no limits. It's quite an infinite database, infinitely stretchable in time. And it is a very rich tool to help anyone to get to know themselves better, get to know other people better, get to know consciousness of, their own planet, as well as surrounding planets better. And there are so many other, to be honest, there are so many other uses. Understanding your karmic knots, understanding your characteristics as a person, right? So like all of those kind of like are, I guess, subcategories of understanding yourself better, understanding your path better, understanding your triggers. Understanding your relationships with other people, what brings you together, or what potentially creates cracks in your relationships, especially, again, if they're karmic or based on past lives, et cetera, as well as understanding groups of people, which is kind of like a little bit of something new that we're going to be diving into this, during this episode. So think of it as kind of almost like accessing an egregor. If you're not familiar with what an egregor is, essentially it's like a collective, it's a construct, it's an energy construct, like almost like a collective thought form. Every organization, every movement in the world has an egregor, like an energetic structure essentially. And you can use your own personal abilities to access the Akashic Records in order to be able to better understand organizations, movements, companies, countries, etc., families. Family unit could be an egregor. As well as, by the way, which is also like a really curious technique I'll be teaching you today, understanding how other people perceive you, right? Because there's always at our core, like who we truly are, and then there is people's perception of us. Interestingly, right, the Akashic Record stores all of it, right? Your perception of yourself, other people's perception of you, as well as the reality the way it is, as well as your higher self perception of you, if that is of interest, right? Because the Akashic Records is not, it's a rich database, but it's not recorded from one point of view only. It is recorded from every single point of view, right? So, for instance, the conversation that we're having right now, right, is going to be recorded in the Akashic Records from my point of view, as well as the point of view of every single listener of this conversation, as well as the point of view of, the camera that's recording this, your house plant that's sitting in your vicinity as you're listening to this podcast, as well as a particle of light that's floating right now in ether in front of my face right now, as well as, essentially any participant of this conversation that we're having today is going to have their own unique view on what's happening right now. And that is all going to be recorded in the Akashic Record field. The reason this is interesting is because you get to access perceptions and not just the happening, right? Because perceptions is really the most fascinating aspect. And so that's essentially the extent of what we're going to be talking about today. So why don't we dive right in? First things first, regardless of how frequently you're working with Akashic Records, how proficient you are at it, then probably the one thing that I want to note that I haven't told you about the Akashic Records yet is the number one most critical part of your energy body, part of your body, maybe shall I say, in order that you need in order to access the Akashic Records is your third eye, or your third eye chakra, your brow chakra. Of all the chakras, this is the one that connects you to the informational field the most. Now, arguably, you could also use the heart to connect to the Akashic Records, but the information that you would be able to perceive and download from the Akashic Records via your heart chakra is going to be quite limited compared to what's available to you if you were to use your third eye. So if for one reason or another you have been struggling accessing the Akashic Records, if you have tried and you feel like you're not getting the information, don't despair. Most likely you need to work on opening your third eye a little bit more. I believe in the past we did an episode about the third eye chakra. I may choose to do a refresher. If you feel like you need a refresher from me or you have questions around the third eye, please drop me a DM on Instagram. I am on This Is Mariya Official. Mariya with a weird spelling, Mariya. Just letting you know. So what is pertinent to us today, right? Remember, your third eye, right? Like when you come to this planet, this is not necessarily the planet where third eye, like every human being has a third eye open. Unfortunately, this is more of an outlier to have your third eye open and functioning properly. Multiple reasons for that. This is a very masculine-based planet, which means it's the planet of logic, right? On planets that are run by logic, very often, third eyes tend to be atrophied. They tend to be the part of the body that is not being referred to that frequently. Now, the reason you have that part of your body means that you're meant to use it, right? Because God, creator, source, however you want to call that consciousness, doesn't put things randomly into beings. It is all a great and grand plan. And by the way, third eye, the area of your body that is third eye, is so intrinsically complicated that I promise you didn't get it. You didn't accidentally develop it in your body. It was meant to be there. And part of the reason that it is meant to be there is because you as a being are meant to have access to the Akashic Records. That is the norm, you guys. It is actually not the norm to have it calcified, to have that center essentially dormant in the vast majority of the human population. So as part of, our grand awakening on planet Earth, we're also coming back into our third eye space and reawakening it. So if you have been trying, and for, to access the Akashic Records, but you feel you're not seeing very clearly, there are certain simple things, simple tips I could give you to improve that. Now, this is not the episode on third eye, so let me preface it with that. One thing I'll tell you is if there's a part of your body that exists, right, and everybody has their third eye energetically, as well as, their physically a pineal gland, both exist, right? But you haven't necessarily been accessing it. Think of it as almost being surrounded by like a thin shell. And shell, not dissimilar to an eggshell, right? And that's what essentially a calcification feels like and looks like at the physical level, as well as feels like on the etheric, on the energetic level. So there is a shell that surrounds your third eye area. Apart from, making certain changes to your diet, there are also things energetically you could do to help remove the shell, because the shell, again, kind of like goggles, that you put on your regular eye, or like if you have like really, really dark shades, or if you essentially the shell is going to constrict your sight. That's that's almost obvious, right? You cannot see through like a wall in the same way. It's very, very hard to see through the shell. So there are ways of gentle removing of the shell energetically. And essentially, really quickly, I'll just give you this practice. In a meditative state, you would want to imagine that you are standing next to a large bathtub. And this bathtub is filled with this transparent liquid. And you don't know what this liquid is, but you don't really need to know. You just need to know that it is, like an acidic type of liquid of some sort. Now, this type of liquid is completely safe to the entirety of your body, apart from the shell that surrounds your third eye. So in a meditative state, if your intention is to decalcify your pineal gland, if your intention is to open up your third eye, you can imagine yourself being submerged, full body submerged into that bathtub filled with that like transparent acidic composition. And then you would notice that instantly that liquid starts entering, penetrating your head, or like your skull, going through your skull, and kind of like circulating around the area that is your pineal gland and around that shell, that eggshell. It's a white eggshell-like looking thing, etherically. And so allow the acid to remove and like dissolve the eggshell. Like literally you would, the moment that the acid comes in contact with the shell dissolves. It's almost kind of like an ice melting effect. That's kind of like what it feels like. And so just be here for that process, right? You may need to repeat this practice a couple of times. Is this a silver bullet type of practice? Unfortunately, it's not. It's one of those lead bullets. So you're going to have to do, this is just another way towards getting you to get your third eye to open. Another thing that could be quite healing energetically for your third eye is sending massive amounts of violet or purple light towards your third eye area, almost like emanating it, or using like a violet flame. Actually, is also really, really good if you've been curious about the energies of the flame. You can listen to the episode on the violet flame. But if you don't have the time, just imagine there's a violet flame that's burning straight in the middle of your forehead. And imagine the violet flame to work with your third eye area, opening it up, making it become receptive. The third quick practice I recommend for the people that don't feel like they see is envisioning and imagining your third eye as almost like having an absorbent surface. As you're starting to work with that area first, I want you to imagine that it's like a bowl of violet light, like your third eye is like a globule or a sphere of violet light or purple light, and it starts to rotate. So anytime you have like a dormant part of your body that does not want to engage, you want to start moving it. And so energetically, you want to start moving it, right? Obviously, your physical pineal gland is not going to move, but etherically, energetically, you would create the movement. And so you want to first create the movement that is counterclockwise for about 10 circles, 10 rounds. And then you would want to create the opposite rotation. And then so counterclockwise movement, right? So you create the movement, and then you can also, you can flip it every which way, right? Like you can create other movements, like slight, like bouncy movement, for instance. Again, in your like the little, almost like there was like a ball of air, like a ball of energy here in the middle of your forehead. You would want to imagine like a bouncy, like slight bounces up and down, or left, right, left, right. That would help bring and activate your third eye, bring it out of the dormant state. Because again, imagine like you never used your left arm, like you'd still have your left arm, but if your left arm was never used, you wouldn't know how to do anything with your left arm. You wouldn't know how to like flip on a switch with your left arm. So that's the thing with the third eye, right? Because it has been underused, because you have never called on it for its natural function, it's not doing anything. However, the more you call on it, the more you're trying to wake it up and be like, hey, dude, are you still there? You still there? Because, I need you to help me access the Akashic Records. The more you do that, the more you would notice that your third eye is starting to wake up, right? And over time is providing you with more and more information, right? At first, it may give you the colors, just the vibrations, or some even fuzzy colors. It may not even be like very crisp colors. And then you would notice that those colors may become crisper. Then you may be like, oh, I see more than the colors. I see patterns. And then you may be like, well, I see more than the patterns. Maybe I start seeing shades and outlines of things, right? And so it's a gradual process, right? Just don't give up. Like if you don't see something day one, that is normally, guys, that is just the status quo of planet Earth. 100% of human beings, 99 point something, started there. And most people are still there, so you're like light years ahead, but just keep trying, right? So some of the things. Another thing that you may do is use the energy of the breath or the energy of the sound to reawaken this part of your brain. How would you do that? You would literally imagine breathing in and out through your third eye center. In and out, in and out. So literally you breathe in, but before the air goes into your lungs, imagine it penetrating from your third eye area and then getting into your throat and then getting into your lungs. And the same thing on the exhale, right? So that is how you would use the power of the breath to reawaken or awaken your third eye. The power of sound is kind of the same thing. You would pick a sound. It can be the sound of the universe. It could be doesn't really matter. It could be me. Any of those sounds are actually going to work fine. Me, I find as well really, really like healing for third eye. And you would imagine that you're singing into the middle of your forehead. It would be something like me. But as I'm doing this, and it's a prolonged sound, you would imagine that you're sending that vibration straight into the, into your third eye area, into your brow chakra area. And, essentially you would help reawaken it with the sound. Okay. I felt like I just gave you a crash course in third eye awakening, which was not my intention. I was actually going for the Akashic Records, but I just figured that I would tell you because literally the rest of this episode is predicated upon you having some form of, some semblance of your third eye being open, at least to some degree. Maybe not 100%. Maybe we're not, running yet, but we got to have to at least start crawling, you guys, right? And again, I have like enough of my listeners, and we're actually it's interesting because the larger this group gets, the more diverse a set of folks we're getting. It used to be that, this podcast was for light workers who were like, okay, like third eye all the way, and they already knew how to read the Akashic Records. And now we're getting a lot of, people who are just, here either accidentally or, they're just like overall curious. And so I cannot assume that, everybody's third eyes are open. The good news is 100% of you, whoever you are, has the capacity to open your third eye. And by the way, you guys, it's not even going to take you 30 years to do that. Like literally, if you set your mind to it, you can open it within months. Even if right now, like it's completely calcified, it doesn't really matter because it is a part of your body. You already have it, right? It's not like you're going to have to grow an appendage. That's not what's going to have to happen. You already have an appendage. You already have a pineal gland inside of your brain right now. It was put there for a reason. Why don't we use it? Okay, I'm going to get off this tangent. Going back to the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is such a tremendous tool. Part of the reason why I feel so strongly about teaching all of you how to access it and real life applications of it is because I find that it is a tool that, despite being available to everybody, is used by hardly anyone. And it's upsetting because if you only knew how much information you have literally at your fingertips, you would move through life with so much more ease, so much less drama, and you would make so little mistakes. If there, obviously, like, yes, every mistake is valid. There's no such a thing as mistake. Every experience is amazing. But do you know what I mean? Like some people, set a goal for themselves and it takes them 3 seconds to get there. And other people need 10,000 lifetimes. Like which one would you like to be? Would you like to learn the same lesson for 10,000 lifetimes? Or would you like to move faster? Arguably from soul level and from my perspective, the faster the better. But hey, it's your life. You call the shots. Anyway, going back to using the Akashic Records. And that is why I respect, sometimes the need when you're just starting. Sometimes it's really tempting to want to go to a practitioner, get your Akashic Records read by another human. And I think as an exercise, it's really fun. However, it's not sustainable if you really, and not sustainable to do these readings 5 times a day, right? But that is how frequently you could be referring to the Akashic Records. And it can be really useful in your life. Okay, let's get to the substance. First, accessing your own Akashic Records. Akashic Records is not just a library. It is also not just a network of information, like a net of information with cells, and you can access those cells. Or rather, it is. But it also has shortcuts. Think of it as this. This is the analogy that I'm going to give you. Imagine that you have a series, actually just one book. Imagine you have one book. And then within that one book, very often, most books have a table of contents at the beginning, right? Or a synopsis, but the table of contents is a better example, right? So technically speaking, before buying a book on Amazon or however else you guys are buying books, right? You could look at the table of contents and be like, does this look interesting? Does this not look interesting? Is this for me? Is this not for me? Same thing with the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is not a discombobulated mess of information. It is actually a very, very well-structured database. And if you only knew what the structure was, your life would be infinitely easier, right? Now, you could also access it every which way, which is why very often when accessing the Akashic Records, you would use a guardian or a keeper to help lead you to the right sector of the Akashic Record field. However, and this is actually this next piece of information could be interesting for you to imagine in your head as I'm telling you the story, because that's where we're going to start practicing your third eye magic, right? Every time you're envisioning or imagining whatever I'm saying, you're essentially starting to activate this dormant part of your body. So here's what I would like for you to imagine. Yes, your own personal Akashic Record database is vast. It's massive. And technically, it is organized in a way from, alphabetically, let's just say. That is definitely one way that we can think about it. It's essentially, yes, it has everything in chronological order, and it has everything from A to Z. However, wouldn't you agree that maybe going from just like looking at every single life or every single experience located under letter A is not necessarily the best use of your time? Like, how do you know that's the most relevant thing for you? And you really don't. So that's why there's been developed a system of shortcuts, almost like the outline of the book. So you don't have to read the full book to understand what's available to you. Now, even the outline, even the table of contents, so to say, of the Akashic Records is quite robust. So here's what I'd like for you to imagine. There are certain sections that I find to be quite fascinating when you are studying your own Akashic Record fields. So when you access the general facility, so to say, or the general location of your own Akashic Records, you would notice that there are tracks of information available to you. And this is what I'd like for you to imagine. There are 12 main tracks within your own Akashic Record field that are most relevant to the current incarnation that you live in, to this life of yours. 12 main tracks. Energetically, they look like 12 strings of golden light. They are located parallel to one another. So like almost like 12 parallel golden lines right next to each other. What are those? And what are those tracks? Like, what is the concept of those tracks? 12 tracks are the different facets of who you are that make up this current avatar of yours, like this current persona of yours, this current identity of yours. Each of the tracks contains almost like a particular archetype or a particular quality or a particular characteristic that makes who you are today. All 12 are easily accessible. It's almost like having 12 bookmarks. And then, so that's the first thing, right? That's available. So since essentially, when I'm as a being, right? When I access any of your Akashic Record fields, there are 3 things that are glaringly obvious to me. These are the 3 things that I'm bombarded with. The first thing is this 12 parallel lines, right? Which are kind of like almost like themes that are going to come, themes or strings of who you are as a being. That make up the totality of who you are in this incarnation. The second aspect that I see is 5 black boxes underneath the 12 golden strings. And it's very important for you to start imagining or seeing actually what I'm saying, because that is a mental picture of a shortcut to like your future working with Akashic Records, right? So there are 5 black boxes underneath the 12 strings. The black boxes are your main karmic knots for this life. This life, again, we're just talking this life, right? So those are going to be immediately accessible to me as well. And last, the third thing that is immediately accessible to me, as well as anybody really who starts to work with individual Akashic record fields, the third shortcut is what I would almost call the main archetype, or another way to describe it is the vantage point, or like a facet of you that you're most proud of. Like you're almost like most proud part of you, most cherished aspect of your being, right? So that is actually energetically where that is located is essentially in front of the black boxes and the golden strings. You see this like almost like a globule of white light. And that globule of white light, it's going to be like really in your face. Like it's really the first thing that you see when you access anybody's Akashic records. And it's almost like a persona that takes over. And then, so let me quickly explain how these things are formed. And then I'll also explain how you can access those for yourself. Now, 12, let's start there. 12 strings, right? 12 aspects of who you are. Those are almost like the main themes or the main characteristics, right? Of like your qualities, shall we say, that are going to be highlighted in your current incarnation. Those are not randomly selected. Those are selected by your higher self as he or she is planning your incarnation. It's almost like the 12 outfits, right? At one point, I also made an episode about archetypes. This is not dissimilar to archetypes, although I don't want to confuse the terminology. So if you want to listen to an episode on archetypes, you may find a lot of rich, dense, really good information there. 12 is a lot. You can also access a simplified version of the Akashic record field, like personal one. There are 2 simplified versions that exist. There's a version with 5 strings, and then there's a version with 3. So essentially, depending on how in-depth or how light you want to go, you can access various levels of complexity. By the way, there are obviously more levels of complexity beyond 12, but it starts getting into really complex territory, so we're not going to go there. So on that note, how are the 12 selected? Your higher self looks at this current incarnation and it plans, outcomes, right? These are the outcomes. This is the mission of this incarnation. This is what I want my lower self essentially to do. And then based on that, it selects the 12 outfits for you to wear. And again, a good way to think about it could be in an archetypical type of way. For instance, one of the main topics that may be selected for your life is being a mother. And so what gets highlighted, or a father for that matter, right? What gets highlighted in one of these 12 strings are all of the relevant experiences around motherhood or fatherhood that you had in your past lives that you've already lived, that shaped who you are as a parent, if that makes sense, right? So you know how you guys all have personalities, but you don't really know where they came from, if that makes sense. Personalities are not randomly created. Personalities are, essentially a condensed version of your past experiences. For example, let's say you lived 10,000 lives where you were attacked by a tiger. And in 9,000 lives, you chose to stay and fight the tiger. And in 1,000 lives, you chose to run away from the tiger. The density of your experiences, so like the 9 out of 10 times, right, you chose to fight the tiger. 9 out of 10 of those experiences, all of a sudden are forming a particular pattern of your relationship to danger, right? So in this particular case, this being, chooses the fight versus flight. So this is the being that has been training courage, right? As opposed to, has a pattern of being scared and running away, not wanting to deal with their issues, right? So this person has maybe developed courage, maybe has developed some, strength of will, has developed some strength, right? As opposed to somebody else who may have a flipped polarity, right? Who may have an avoidance style of dealing with issues, who may have fears being a lot more prominent and fears running their life, who may, have a hard time committing to things, because if you commit to things, right, it's hard for you to run away from problems or tigers, if you know what I mean. So your personality is nothing other than a collection of your experiences from past lives. Now, you've all had millions of experiences, right? Which means that, technically speaking, there are more than 12 archetypes and more than 12 personality traits you could possibly have. You probably have thousands upon thousands. Now, your higher self is not going to give you thousands. It actually, if you think about it, your earthly avatar, like your earthly persona, is actually quite simple, all things considered. So 12 really is the roughly, like, every single human can be explained like with 12 different patterns that are running them on planet Earth. That's it. It's that simple. It's not a very complicated planet at all from this perspective. So if you wanted to truly understand someone, you could look at all the 12 patterns that they brought with themselves, all the 12 like lines, understand what those are, and you would know exactly what kind of being they are and like exactly what kind of aspects they brought with themselves, right? So the 12, again, they could be very different. Like one could be a pillar of courage. One could be a pillar of like around money. Like maybe your relationship with money is really important. And it could be just, again, like, what is your relationship with money? Like you on your pillar, golden thread, golden string of money issues. It could be, okay, like maybe you would bring experiences where you had lack of money, right? Maybe it would be, and by the way, on that pillar, there could be all kinds of different memories. It could be memories of losing an inheritance. It could be memories of, being left as a single parent with 3 children, having to provide for them. It could be a memory of becoming disabled and not being able to pay the bills or what have you, right? Like that could be another string. But really, that's the one thing that's important, because I want to also simplify instead of complicating things for you. I feel like I'm complicating things a little bit. The good news about these 12 strings is they're very, very simple. They're going to come to you. You're not going to be able to dissect all the 12,000 different lives that went into it. You're going to get like a very quick 1 or 2 word read on what it is. Literally, for this person, it would be like insecurity around money. And that's all you're going to see about that pillar. The third one may be a warrior spirit, because this person is just like such a warrior. The fourth one could be compassion and grace, like all of these. It's like almost like a borderline like personality traits that come from past experiences. These are the 12. Now, again, if 12 is too much, you can always just look at the 5 or just at the 3. How is it determined? Like when Akashic Records are becoming condensed, and instead of seeing 12, you're seeing 5 or 3. You're seeing the ones that have the most gravity, the most weight in the lifetime. So essentially, the Akashic Records is going to adjust itself to only show you the main ones, because not out of the 12, not everything is created equal. Not everything has the same weight. And so it'll just show you the main patterns. So this is the 12. The 5 boxes underneath are the karmic knots. The karmic knots are not the same as experiences, but these are cornerstone issues for you to solve. Now, we all have a lot of karma. Karma is a byproduct of being alive. At any point in time for any incarnation, you select between 3 and 5, but for planet Earth tends to be 5, karmic knots for you to untie. And those 5 are going to be accessible via these black boxes. Last but not least is this little being in the front, like the white that I described as the white sphere of light. This is the first thing when you start interacting with your own Akashic records, or you start interacting with an Akashic records of another. Like literally the first layer you peel off, this thing is front and center. And this is almost like at the very core of who you are. What is the number one? What is your saving grace? That is a good way to describe it. Like, what is your saving grace? What is the number one most defining good thing about you, right? And you would notice all kinds of things. People are proud about all kinds of things on this planet. You may see people who were, who had an incarnation during World War II and they were piloting an aircraft and they're super proud of that. A lot of men have warrior archetypes, like very strong warrior, like fighting for their home, fighting for their motherland. So a lot of strength over there for men. You would see a lot of, beauty, like beautiful archetypes for women, nurturing archetypes for women, like being like almost like a Mother Teresa without, if I were to try to quickly explain that, some goddesses and queens definitely coming through for a lot of women. So you're going to have a lot of that, right? Like what is the aspect that, you're most proud of? You can tell so much about a person by just knowing these pieces of information: 5 karmic knots, 1 saving grace, and 12 patterns or 12 personality traits. Even if you know 3 personality traits, that is more than most people know about each other and more than most people know about themselves. If you were to understand that, you would understand people on such a crazy deep level that you would be better than any shrink out there. Better than any psychologist, psychiatrist. I kid you not. Because these are your underlying patterns. These are the things that are in the subconscious that run your day to day, right? Why do you act a certain way? Why don't you act a certain way? Why do certain things trigger you? They do because you have a particular energetic composition to your body that you came into courtesy of your higher self. If I wanted to understand what that is, I would access your personal Akashic record field and I would look at these 12 plus 5 plus 1 factor, right? And that's all the information I really need to know. 18 pieces of data. Even if I just looked at 3, 5, and 1, right? So 9 essentially pieces of data, I would still get a complete picture of you. Why is this good news, right? Once you get to know, now obviously, for your own Akashic records, I recommend that to literally 100% of you. I think you should do your own personal Akashic records reading using this framework. You would be surprised what comes out. Better than any personality test you can come across. Better than Myers-Briggs. I kid you not. Just saying. 2, right? It's going to become a lot easier for you to interact with other humans, especially if you have communication issues, especially if you're an introvert and you're not necessarily are looking to spend 3 hours with conversations with random strangers, right? You can just know a lot about them. Now, there are certain things about Akashic records that is protected information, and access levels is something that I talk about in my previous episode on Akashic records. Not every single human has the same level of access codes to the Akashic records, right? Depending on your level of proficiency as a soul and a slew of other factors, you may or may not have high clearance levels around accessing Akashic records. In other words, when we're talking about information about other human beings, it is only normal, right, that our guides and their guides are protective of the information that the Akashic records exist. So whenever we are interacting with information of another being, about another being, it is really important that we maintain a certain level of integrity in our hearts. And our intention is for the greater good, as well as their greater good as well, right? If we are trying to access Akashic records with a malicious intent, then this is not how this library is supposed to work. So consider yourself warned. So you're going to be creating ripples, right? Distortions in the field, right? So never try to use the Akashic records to harm everybody or anybody. That's just putting it out there because it needs to be said. But also don't be surprised that if you have a malicious intent and try to access somebody else's Akashic records, don't be surprised if your record access is going to be closed. Because the keepers and the guardians of the Akashic records have full clearance to remove or grant you, clearance. Access. Grant you access, right? So if they see you abusing the system, unfortunately, consider yourself warned. They may just remove the access keys. However, if you are accessing the Akashic records, not because you're trying to be malicious or trying to mistreat another or anything, then this is fair game. Now, I still wouldn't recommend doing in-depth like regressions and like looking at other people's lifetimes without their consent, even if you have that ability, right? In the same way that you probably wouldn't want to read other people's intimate correspondence. It's just like not really cute, because I think like we all have the rights to privacy. I wouldn't go too deep into other people's Akashic records field. However, the outlines are a little bit different. The outlines, or these like table of contents, are more fair game, right? That is considered almost like general access knowledge. So these pieces of information that I just described to you, are almost like fair game to understand about other people. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to understand that about other people? I don't know, co-workers trying to understand, them, where they're coming from, why they are the way they are. Your family members, same, right? Like there's so much family drama. That's why they say, right? If you're, Zen or a saint and, try going back home for the holidays and see how saintly you are then, because our family triggers us like nobody else. It would be so much easier, I find, for people to come to terms with their parents, their children, their aunts, uncles, any of the above, right? All of the above, any of their family members, if they just could do a quick access into the Akashic records and see those key points about, the why and like what makes these people the way they are, would solve, I feel like 90% of the problems. Kid you not. Okay. So this is about accessing, personal records, like either personal records or records for one person. I'm not necessarily making a distinction here. So how do you actually do that? There are so many ways, you guys. I will just focus on some of the simplest ones. So if you are doing a reading on yourself, this is actually the easiest in some ways, and although arguably maybe not, because we all have extreme blind spots around our own everything, right? Like it's the hardest person to judge is yourself, right? So again, that's why don't come into this exercise expecting to judge any of the information that you see, but rather to learn. So couple of, I'm going to give you really quickly a few different ways that you can access your own personal Akashic records. Some of them are going to range from extremely expected to some maybe lesser expected. Here are a few. You always want to do, at least initially, when you're starting to work with Akashic Records fields, you want to start from a meditative state, right? So really clear your mind, make sure that it's not cluttered, make sure you're using the energy of the breath to cleanse your overall vibration. Then you would want to imagine that there is a pillar of light right in front of you, a pillar of light, golden light, comes straight from heavens. Don't know where it comes, don't know where it goes. You would want to step into the pillar. This would represent your personal Akashic record field, the one that's the easiest to access. You get into the pillar, right? So the pillar is the most important thing. So connecting with the pillar, making sure that the entirety of your body is encapsulated within the pillar. The next thing you can do, then there are multiple options from here. You can imagine there's a book in front of you and you just flip the pages, right? That's what you can imagine. It works for some. Then you can imagine that it's a waterfall of golden light with codes. It's almost like a water, but it's codes. codes and symbols. And that water is starting to trickle up. Like it's just starting to actually pour on you. And that is another form of information, accessing that information. You may actually imagine that there is a cord that's being created in the center of your third eye. And that golden cord connects you to a cell up in the ceiling. There's like a cell of golden light. And that cell is your personal cell of the Akashic record field. That's another way to connect. Last that I'll give you is you want to imagine that in front of you there is like a little bowl of water. But that water is golden. That water would represent the Akashic record field. In order to connect to it, you would drop both of the palms of your hands into the water. Submerge both of your hands in the water. And then imagine like your palms are now absorbing that water with all the information. And that is actually another really, really powerful way to receive the information from the, Akashic records. So once you have the connection established in, one of the 4 ways that I just described, you would want to imagine this energy structure that I just explained to you. 12 little pillars, right? 5 black boxes, and then 1 white sphere. Literally, you would be able to see that in your mind's eye, in your third eye. And then you would just come up one by one. You can touch this object, flip it almost, and this object is going to reveal the information that it holds, right? So for the white sphere, like your saving grace, right? Like the one aspect or the one life that you're so proud of that like literally it's kind of like the part of you that warms your heart. That one generally comes as an image. So that white sphere is going to rotate and then it's going to turn into an image of a person. And like depending on what that image shows you, what kind of dress it is, who is that person? Are they a warrior? Are they like a dancer? Who are they? You would be able to tell like what is the number one thing that like really defines you? What are you most proud of about the aspects that you've brought, right? What is the near and dear life that you lived that is so who you are, right? That you made it a saving grace. What is the purpose of the saving grace? The saving grace is your center. The saving grace is the thing that you fall back on when the going gets hard, subconsciously. You're not aware of it. But when your world becomes shaky, this is the axis that you're going to rebuild your confidence around. That's why I really like paying attention to the saving grace. By the way, for something like this, you may want to take notes because trying to remember this many aspects of yourself, it's impossible, you guys. Like human beings can remember 7 things, I think, successfully. Post 7 things, it's really hard. So you may want to take notes. If you're freaking out about opening your eyes in the middle of the meditation, don't freak out. It's normal. You can go in and out of that state. And so you can take notes and go back to the meditation state. Don't worry about that. When you open your eyes to take a note, your meditation state doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. So don't worry. And then the next thing you would do is you would flip the 12 personas, like the 12 personality traits, right? And kind of like unwrap them. And the information may come to you in words or pictures again, right? So you may write down the 12. And probably the last that I would do is the 5 karmic knots. What are the 5 karmic knots? It could be, essentially the 5 problems that you need to solve. It could be like money, relationships, education, standing up for myself, getting my voice back, figuratively or literally, being a good parent, being a good kid, whatever. Like you may have so many different karmic knots. It could be something deeper, like fighting for the rights of animals. That could be like a karmic knot. Being fair and telling the truth could be a karmic knot, right? Like it's essentially your to-do list, if that makes sense, right? If the 12 pillars up top are like the who you are list, the karmic knots are your to-do list, if that makes sense. Okay. And then so essentially, you would be able to see all of these aspects about yourself. Yes, if you are accessing the Akashic records of another being because you're trying to build a closer relationship with them, because you maybe have a personal conflict and you're not sure where it's coming from or what this person is coming from, and you think that they're being the way they are because they're being vindictive or because they hate you, chances are they're not. Chances are you just really have to look into what their own composition is. By the way, regardless of whether you have a conflict with a person or not, there are certain people in your life that I absolutely recommend you do a quick swipe of the Akashic records. Both of your parents, your spouse or significant other, even if you're not married, doesn't really matter, your kids, your best friend, your worst enemy. That's what I would do. Best friend, worst enemy. You could also do an ex. Like if there's an ex of yours that just somehow doesn't want to leave, there's some unresolved thing in there. And so looking up in their Akashic records could actually help you resolve things, believe it or not. Now, do you have to do the same exercise and look at all these pieces of data on other people? Absolutely not. You can just, look at 3 traits instead of 12. That's cool also. However, it would really help you to understand their saving grace, right? Their saving grace is extremely, extremely important because when people are proud of their aspects, you may bet on it that they're going to act in congruence or inconsistent, like they're going to be consistent with their saving grace. For example, if you are seeing you're looking up somebody's saving grace and it's a nurse or a caretaker, like a doctor. There are a lot of those, by the way. Then you know that they really care deeply about helping others. And that is the truest expression of who they are at soul level, potentially, right? So this life, for instance, right? They may not be a nurse. Maybe this lifetime, they are an entrepreneur and they decided to, have a bakery. But really, their saving grace is the nurse, that nurturing archetype, right? The one thing you cannot win with people is if you attack their saving grace in any way, shape, or form. That is not something that I recommend anybody does, right? Because again, somebody's saving grace is a sense of their stability. So for instance, if your mom is an entrepreneur, but she really likes helping people on the streets if they need help seemingly, or she is feeding squirrels in the park or whatever, and her saving grace is the nurse, then you know why all of this is coming from, where this all is coming from, right? So you may not want to criticize her for being like, Mom, you're an entrepreneur. What are you doing like feeding squirrels? She may get really offended, right? So don't ever attack anybody's saving grace. But I'm not saying you would, but just giving you, perspective, like just hope to provide perspective. So saving grace is also who somebody is at soul level. So what I also mean by that is it's very hard for people to act the opposite of their saving grace. For instance, let's say that you are hiring somebody, for your team, you're the hiring manager. And you really need somebody who is extremely fair, like a chief financial officer or whatever, like somebody in the accounting. They need to be fair. But you see somebody who's a saving grace and their saving grace is a nurse, it's really hard to get impartiality from a nurse, because nurses, right, are very heartfelt people. They lead with their heart. They don't lead with their brain. They just feel somebody else's pain. They're like, oh, I need to help them. So what I'm saying is they may not be the right fit for the role, because it would be very hard for the nurse to not act compassionately in general, right? Very hard for her to be impartial, or him, right? So all I'm saying is the saving grace can really tell you a lot about the person, how they're going to act, but also their value system, right? You should always be asking them, like yourself, what does that person value? Do they value status? Do they value money? Do they value helping others? Because your saving grace is really going to be telling, right? But also, even if you're seeing, for instance, if you're looking at, your own saving grace or other people's saving grace, you need to pay attention and ask clarifying questions, because you can. For instance, let's say that you're looking at somebody and their saving grace is a queen, right? Like you're looking at, like, the first thing that stares you in your face is, oh my God, she's a queen. She's such a queen. Or like a king. You need to ask yourself the question, what kind of queen or king is it? Because royalty is not created equal, right? So that person lived in a life sometime in the past of being royalty. But what kind of royal were they that they were so proud? And what is it important about, for them about being royal? For some people, you would notice that they really just liked the power, right? Like being in charge. And that is one kind of royal. And other people, for instance, loved being a queen or a king because it gave them the capacity and the means to give to others. Because they could provide large charity donations. Because they could build libraries and schools and hospitals. You know what I mean? Right? They could enrich other people's lives. So always ask clarifying questions, and also look not just at the face value of what you're being shown, but also the underlying vibration of that archetype, right? Not just the queen, but what kind of queen? Benevolent queen, beautiful queen, powerful queen. Those are very different queens. Smart queen, what kind of queen is it? I hope this makes sense. Okay. So again, saving grace, really, really important. By the way, if you only have literally 30 seconds and you really need to do a quick read on somebody, literally the first 3 seconds you access the Akashic Records field, the saving grace is going to start flying out. So you would just really be like, okay, I just want to see the saving grace. I just want to see this main aspect show itself. And so it would. How would you read really quickly? How would you access other people, like one person's Akashic Records? The very simple way is either through a photograph or when you actually see that person, because their own access, like their own Akashic Record field. Here's what I'd like you to imagine to expand your perception. There is a layer of the etheric body, energy body, that is actually like a very thin layer of gold. And it looks like gold symbols that cover the person's body, almost like a hieroglyphs or symbols, yeah. And that is actually somebody's layer of Akashic Records that's literally attached to their etheric body, their energy body. Now, the culmination of this point is their own third eye area. So if you are trying to access somebody else's Akashic Records field, it is a connection from one third eye to another third eye. So you would literally be looking at their third eye area, the center of their forehead. And, right, if you want to turn on your third eye, right, because if you're focusing on the color of their eyes and their complexion, all that good stuff, you're using your two physical eyes. You almost need to allow your physical vision to go into the background and almost become fuzzy. And focus on what your third eye is showing you. And it's going to focus, your third eye inadvertently is going to focus on the golden layer, on the golden symbols surrounding their energy body. And it would strictly go into the third eye area, right above their eyes. That's why they say that the eyes, by the way, are the window of the soul or something like that, right? Like they're the access to the soul. It's not really your physical eyes are, it's your third eye that is that entry point into your soul and your own personal Akashic Record field. So, by kind of almost like removing the layers or like watching somebody's third eye area, you may get some light information about them. The number one thing you would definitely easily be able to read is their saving grace. Like, what is the number one life that they're most proud of that they lived? Like, what is their energetic profile? And then you would be able to also read the 12 aspects, or at least the 3 of the 5 aspects. That kind of like make up who they are. So that is easily available to everybody. Okay, so that is reading actual people. Another thing that I'll quickly add is this. Here's another way to use the Akashic Records. If you have a conflict with somebody, or if it feels like a karmic relationship, I find that there's so much drama sometimes because people are not able to understand where the karmic relationship is coming from. They're not able to understand how to fix it. They're not able to understand any of the patterns. Here's what you do in this case. You imagine that you and that person that you have this issue with are standing in front of one another in a meditation. And you both are standing in the pillar of light. Remember that pillar of light is already access to the Akashic Records. You collectively, the two of you, have a collective Akashic Records field. And in between the two of you, there is a golden box. A golden box of all the lives that you lived together and all your karma together. What you want to imagine is that the both of you are coming up to this box, almost like a chest, and you're lifting the top of that chest, almost like opening up a Pandora's box. And then, two things, right? Because that chest is going to contain all the information about all the lifetimes, all the instances, all the occurrences that happened to bring the two of you to this point in time. So I find that by just understanding what happened in the past, it's so much easier to resolve the present and the future. So essentially, by diving into, like literally diving or jumping into that box, into the golden chest, if you will, you would be able to submerge yourself into all of those memories, into the field, like your collective field. And so just look around and see what comes through that space. Flashes of memories, like certain instances, like videotapes from the past, certain words that were said, patterns, it's all going to start bubbling to the surface and coming through to you. So spend some time in that space if you want to resolve unresolved karmic knots with a particular human. Okay, last but not least, if we want to access collective Akashic Records, which is what I'm doing right now when I'm talking to you guys, right? If I wanted to essentially do any read, like in terms of percentages, if I wanted to look anything up, I could access, the collective consciousness of you as a group of listeners, as well as every single being on planet Earth. Now, at this point, I don't really need to do anything special, but I'm also extremely connected to the Akashic Records. I live in the Akashic Records, if that makes sense. I live and breathe Akashic Records, so it's very easy for me. However, if you're just a beginner, here's what you would want to do. Accessing large groups of people, information about large collective groups of people, is a little bit more complicated than accessing individual codes. Just because the information is denser, there's a lot more of it. And so I actually recommend an extra layer of protection when you're just starting off. So you would want to actually get into the whole of records. The keyword is the whole of records. Please remember, the whole of records. It's a code that I am transmitting to you. A whole of records is a particular meeting place. It's a collective place within the Akashic Record construct. So in a meditative state, you would ask your guides or the universe to bring you into the golden hall of records. It's a very, very huge, humongous hall, very tall ceilings, you guys, and it has golden pillars, like columns, along the walls on the left and the right. And I don't know how many columns, thousands of columns, because literally this hall of records just never ends. And it's all gilded, it's all golden. And again, very tall ceilings and very light. So you would imagine yourself in the Hall of Records. Hall of Records is kind of, like I said, a collective meeting place. All kinds of things happens in here. In the middle of the Hall of Records, there is a large white crystal quartz. That is kind of like the heart of the Akashic Records. And it's crystalline heart. And then what you would see actually in the Hall of Records is almost like individual pods. There's golden individual pods for people to access and work with certain aspects of the Akashic Records. And so you would walk inside of one of these golden pods. These pods almost look like eggs with doors. So you would walk inside of this egg with a door. And inside of there is a bowl, a bowl with water, filled with water on a stem, on a stick. I don't know how to explain. Almost looks like a martini glass. Oh my God, such a weird analogy. So pardon my analogy, but like in a martini glass, like a drink glass. But it's huge. It's like a pretty large bowl, right? It's literally half of your height, right? So it's a pretty large, almost like a mini fountain without being a fountain. I don't know if I'm making sense. But imagine there's like a bowl filled with golden energy, right? And again, like in this record, so you would get inside of the individual pod, and then you would explain to the water, the golden water that is inside of this bowl, a martini glass, if you will, what aspect of the Akashic Records you're trying to access. For instance, you'll be like, please show me the collective of the United States. Or please show me every single, the collective space of all of the employees of the Coca-Cola company. Or please show me the collective space of every single viewer of, I don't know, the Oprah show, or I don't know, Ellen, or any of the shows, right? That could be like a request. You can be like, please show me every single person that goes to my college, like that collective space, the collective space of my college, for instance. You can be like, show me the collective space of my family. That could be one. And so essentially there needs to be a request of like what collective energy you want to access. And then once that request is made, you would notice that the water is starting to shift, and it's almost like you see some like little particles in it, almost like codes are shifting. Like they're being, they're just morphing essentially in front of your eyes. And then the morphing would stop and the energy would be solidified. And then you would drop both of your hands again into this bowl of water. And that is how you connect to the collective consciousness. You literally drop your hands, your energetic, your etheric hands. And you spend 30 minutes just connecting. From there, you can ask any question as it relates to that collective consciousness, to the collective consciousness of the group. For instance, you can be like, if you're looking at a family, and I don't know, like let's say you're marrying into a family. And it's a big deal, right? Like you're merging your energy with all of these people. And you have questions, right? What are their values? What do they appreciate most in others? What do they hate most? Like all of these questions may bother you, right? What is their collective karma? What is their collective dharma? Like any of the questions that you may have, like what is their light karma, dark karma, like any of the above, right? What are the patterns that are very common to them? What should I expect? All of these questions you could ask as it relates to that family. Or for instance, if you're getting a new job, right? You could connect to the egregor, the collective consciousness of that company. And actually, you can learn so much about that company. This is better than doing reference checks on a company. You could connect to the mental space of that company, right? So the mental chatter of people that work there. And you would be surprised how consistent the information is that comes through. Like you would be able to see common thoughts of people that work there. Like, are people overall happy? Are people overall miserable? Are a lot of people trying to quit? Do they feel like the company is doing well? Do they trust the management? Do they feel that the CEO is good? Or like, what's the problem? What does it take to survive in that company? What kind of people, is it a cutthroat environment? Because they may tell you anything during interviews, but what is actually truly the case, right? If you're the business owner, it could be so fascinating for you to do that on your own business and your own company, to try to understand the people perceptions, what the people's perceptions are, right? Again, their mental chatter in that collective egregor, et cetera, et cetera. If you're going to a new country or you're learning a new language, it can be quite fascinating to try to understand, okay, like how do the people that live in Spain, how are they different from the people that live in Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. Or like, it doesn't even have to be that dramatic. Portugal versus Spain, you can go whatever. And you'll be able to read into the collective energy of the group. If you're working with groups of people, right, you can connect to their energy, even if it's a future group of people. For instance, let's say you host workshops every Tuesday, and you want to read into the energy of the group that is going to gather around you next Tuesday. You can do it right now. Like, you don't have to wait for the group to actually gather. You can be like, okay, show me, the common issues of that group of people that's going to be, with me on that Tuesday. What do they worry about? What do they care about? And all of that information you're going to be able to receive through your hands in the bowl. Kid you not. Works like magic, right? If you're hosting meditations, again, right, you can read into the collective energy of the group. By the way, you don't have to do it during prep work. Once you get really good at this, you can do this intuitively, and it'll take you 15 seconds. These people are sitting in front of you, right? If you're guiding them in the moment, connect to the energy of the group. Be present to what it is that they want from you as a healer, right? As a group. Or as an individual, it doesn't really matter. You can use the same thing, the same bowl technique to connect to that one individual person, right? What do they want from you right now? What is on their mind? How can you be most helpful, right? These are just some examples of how you can use the Akashic Records to enrich your life today. Last but not least, before I forget, because I did forget, is this. If you're trying to understand how people perceive you, which can be the most fascinating, literally, experience ever, this is what you would want to do. You would want to, again, imagine that you're standing in the pillar of light that represents access to the Akashic Records. So you walk into that pillar. And then you want to zoom out. And you want to see yourself in the middle, like almost like floating up. And imagine that you are like the center, the nucleus of a larger sphere of light. And then there are all these almost spikes or like rays emanating from you, kind of like you're the sun and all these rays are emanating from you. So essentially, we're going to be looking at your own field, which is another way of looking at it, is the spherical object. Now, when you're doing it that way, what you could get like present to is what people think of you. So essentially, again, just let me reiterate, because some of you didn't get what it should look like. So you walk into the pillar of light, right? And then you see yourself, like your body of light inside of that pillar. And then you zoom out, right? And so you see your little body of light floating up, and it starts to become encapsulated within a sphere of golden light. So you're the nucleus, and then there's like a larger sphere that surrounds you. And then you also start emanating light like the mini sun. Here's what you would want to do. You would want to first state your request. You would want to say, the Akashic Records, can you please let me know what other people think of me? And then you would penetrate as a consciousness. You would penetrate inside of this sphere of golden light, right? That is your energy field. And the moment you get inside of that sphere, where you are emanating light inside of that sphere, you would be able to start almost like hearing mental chatter of other people around you. And they would be like, she's this, he is that. It's almost like words, almost like a mental map. Have you guys ever seen like mind maps? There are these things as like mind maps. They would take all the words on the page and they would like blow it into a mind map that's literally all words, but some words are more bold or larger depending on how often, how frequent they come across on a page. So this is the same thing, right? Because technically there are thousands of people that you've met in your life. And granted, a lot of these people have very unique opinion about yourself, about you, but you would be surprised of how common some of these opinions are. And so when you walk into this like field, you would, the Akashic Records is going to throw you the words that people think about you most frequently. Like you couldn't escape that. And that is actually a very, very interesting exercise. You may be surprised what you find out. It can be quite interesting. Okay. I meant this as a practical session. I don't know if this was complicated, although I guess I could really, really quickly look at the collective consciousness and see that there's actually a lot of excitement. Like enough of you are excited about this. You're like, holy cow, I didn't know I could do this. I'm glad that this is the feedback. I wanted to allow you guys to ask me some questions about this because I know this was kind of dense and practical. So any clarifying questions around what we spoke about today, I am ready to receive the question as long as it serves the collective. I'm ready to hear it. Anything that's Akashic Records related. The question is, how do I know which technique I should use from the ones that you gave us today? Because you gave us like 12 different techniques. I know, I'm sorry, guys. I kind of wanted to, I wanted to give you options because the truth of the matter is each of you is a unique snowflake. And I highly, highly recommend that you try at least a few of the ones that I gave you. Now, once you find the one, stick to the one. The point of this is not to to know 48 fancy techniques to do the same exact thing. Once you find the one technique that works, just use it and abuse it. And that's it. Like, that's all you need. I personally, for collective spaces, I like the bowl and hands exercise the best. If I need quick guidance on other people, I actually prefer going straight into their third eye area. That is the quickest. Literally in 3 seconds, you get the information. Now, again, if you need something that's really sophisticated and you want to watch 3 hours of somebody else's past life, make sure that you have the access codes. But this is not something that I would necessarily just do like quickly on the spot. Like, it requires maybe a little bit more concentration, especially if you're trying to go for like higher, like more detailed information. But don't make accessing the Akashic Records harder than it needs to be. You know what? One thing I'll tell you is, I gave you all these ways. There are 3,000 million other ways. Just probably 3,000 million is what, 3 billion? You know what I mean. 3 billion other ways plus. It's not a scientific calculation to access Akashic Records. But also, don't make it a big deal. It is intuitive. It is innate to you. Accessing the Akashic Records is innate to you. Your body knows how to do it. So, if you have been doing it your own way, just do it. Really, then the outcomes of this episode for you is going to be, well, the table of contents, what are the pieces of information that you can access, and, maybe some other tidbits that you picked up along the way. But that is what you would want to access. How you access it, there are many, many ways of doing it, right? So going back to your question, don't overwhelm yourself with perfecting every single technique. Pick a favorite. If it ends up working for you, beautiful. Just keep practicing. The more you practice, the less of a technique you're going to need. It's just going to be a request and an answer, a request and an answer. Because truly, the outcome of all of these practices is you being able to ask a question and you being able to receive an answer instantaneously, without closing your eyes, breathing for 10 minutes, trying to get in the hall of records, entering some type of capsule, freaking putting your hands in water, and like any of that. None of that. Like, that is an interim step, right? In the same way that before you can speak words or before you can write words, you need to like understand like what each letter looks like. Only then you can put them in words. That is like the means of getting there, right? If you are already there and you can just ask a question and receive the answer, great. Then arguably you don't need any of the other techniques. But I wanted for you to have many tools so you have more things to try. Because everybody's different, you may just have favorites. Some techniques may work for you better than others, and that's totally fine. Okay, I feel like there's another question from the collective on the Akashic Records. I am ready to receive your question. Question is, how can I deepen my relationship with Akashic Records? Well, the more frequently you interact with Akashic Records, by default, this is considered deepening the relationship. You may also start by asking very simple questions and then increase the complexity of your questions. For instance, initially, I don't know, you may just be like, hey, show me the saving grace. And then you can be like, well, can you show me the life where the saving grace came from? Or what makes this queen or king special, like what makes this archetype special, right? So like, start asking more information, start getting more sophisticated questions, because the more sophisticated question, the more sophisticated the answer, right? They exist at the same frequency. That is how you deepen relationship with Akashic Records. You can also create your own personal space within the Akashic Records. So you can almost like create a cell. Cell sounds morbid. I meant like a cell in the matrix, but like a room, fine. Well, let's use the analogy of the room. You may create your own room or like an offshoot of the Hall of Records that is your own space. You designate it as your own space, and you make a commitment, right? To every time go to that space as you're trying to connect to the Akashic Records or as you're working with Akashic Records. Over time, you would notice that that particular place almost like becomes a holy place, or like it starts developing density. And as it develops density, it starts working in your favor, like almost like a spirit guide of sorts, right? So that's another way to deepen your relationship, right? If you always go back to the same space or place, you would find your connection to be instant. You would find it to be deeper. You would find that the information that comes through is higher quality or denser or just more specific. So that would be another way of improving your relationship. But also, always work on your third eye. Because again, the depth, the breadth of the information that you're getting from the Akashic Records is correlated entirely to how well that function, that part of your body is operating. All right, one last question. Anything on the Akashic Records or the techniques that we discussed today? I am ready to receive the question. How do I know that the information that I am getting is true and it's coming from the Akashic Records and I am not making it up? I find it endearing. Thank you for asking this. A lot of you are thinking that because especially as you're starting out, it's very easy to think that you came up with these things randomly, that this is not real. There is no proof for any of this. And in fact, you may be going crazy. Yes. It happens. One thing I'll tell you is this. It is always harder to differentiate between your own thoughts and the information that is coming through at the very beginning of your journey. So keep at it and keep going. The more you practice, the easier it would become. You would notice that the information that comes to you from other sources feels like a little bit of a revelation every single time. It feels kind of new, right? Also, very often people don't have such great imaginations, so don't you worry. Most of the times you're not coming up with these things. But the information that comes through, right, also depends on the purity of your channel. So if you're worried that whatever comes through, if you suspect that whatever comes through may have more of you in it than you would like, then a simple exercise to remedy that is to clear your own channel. You would imagine that there is a channel that stems from your third eye into infinity or into the Akashic Records. And that channel from the inside can get clogged and it can also get like dirty, almost like dusty or something, right? And so you would want to flush it out with immense amounts of white light under pressure. Like you just imagine the white light is moving through there like at high speeds. White light or water. And so you would want to clean up all the dirt, the debris from your channel, right? And once you do that, then the incoming stream can be pure, right? So a couple of things. Keep your channel clean. Keep your third eye area clean, right? Do the maintenance if you have to. Trust what you're seeing, right? Don't judge yourself for what you're seeing. Because you're also a translation device, right? Like the Akashic Records can start transmitting the information. Are you a good translator or not a good translator remains to be seen, but practice makes perfect. So the more you persevere, the more you keep at it, the more information that, is going to come through that is truthful, right? But also don't get in your own way, right? Don't doubt yourself or your abilities because you, again, accessing the Akashic Records is intuitive. It's just people have forgotten that it is, right? So trust your body. Trust that your body knows what to do and trust the information that comes through is all, right? Trust is, I think, is a very important underestimated factor in magic. And you will get better at it. It's kind of like for people that start they're just becoming like early in their game of like becoming clairvoyant or clairaudient. Initially, they all like literally 100% of them think, "Oh, I made it up. Oh, I made it up." And then over time, you really start to differentiate like your voice from the voice of your guides, your voice from the voice of the universe. Same thing here. The information that you kind of know, as opposed to the information that comes from the Akashic Records, it has a different frequency. If you were to be able to feel into the information that comes from the Akashic Records, it always has a gold tint to it. It's a golden field. Akashic Records is actually golden. So you may also get mindful, or I encourage you to like start perceiving the frequency. If it has a golden tint, chances are it's the Akashic Records. Alrighty, you guys. Well, this was dense. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, please, either leave us a review or give us, I don't know, a certain number of stars, however many stars you think that we deserve. Your ratings on the podcast is really, really important to me. It helps the algorithm. It helps more people like you find this content. And hopefully, that'll help even more people access their Akashic Records and whatnot. So, I'm thrilled to be creating all of this content for you. I'm thrilled to be having this conversation. So if you can help me spread the word by rating it or giving us a review, I totally appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. I will talk to you soon. Bye.